Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. We cover all high schools and middle schools, as well as some K through 8 schools. We work very closely with CMS law enforcement, and our primary goal is to provide a safe and secure environment for all students, teachers, and parents, all staff. We really want to be a liaison with the whole school community. And we want to build relationships and partnerships with the school community as well as the community that surrounds the schools. Our school resource officers are very passionate about what they do. They have additional training in the areas that they cover, as well as most of them serve in an additional role outside of just providing safety and security, where they try to be mentors and role models and have great relationships with the students and staff inside the school. This past year, obviously, with COVID shutting down schools, changed how we did some things. Most of our school resource officers supported the divisions that they worked in while schools were closed. But with schools poised to open next week, we are back as business as usual. We'll all be back next week on Monday. So that's the role of the school resource officer, and I'm going to turn it over to Detective Justin Comfort from Major Crash Unit to talk about some school traffic safety for next week.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good morning. As Captain said, school's back in session. It means a lot more traffic's going to be happening on our roadways, especially during rush hour in the morning and afternoon. With that, Transportation Division would just like to give a few tips for our community so that we can make it a safe school year, not only in the classroom, but also on the road. So, for our parents, guardians, and caretakers, when dropping off your kids, please follow the school procedures. Most of them set this with law enforcement and school safety personnel, and they have a set procedure so that it's safe for everyone. We ask that you don't double park when dropping off your students. We also ask that you don't load or unload children across from the school. This becomes a huge risk for them having to cross mostly major fairways in front of the schools and around them. And then we also ask that parents get together to maybe carpool so that we don't have as much traffic on the road. With our school buses, please be cautious when you have school buses around. We ask that you stay back further so that when those lights come active, yellow or red, you start to reduce your speed and stop. At the time the arm is out, extended fully, and the lights are red, you are required to stop in both directions on an undivided roadway. This way that kids crossing from either side or entering the school bus will be safe at all times, and it also keeps you safe as a driver and our school bus drivers. We ask that you never pass a school bus when even the amber lights are active, as this can become a safety issue and kids may start moving. Kids are always not aware of the hazards they see around them, so it's our jobs as safe drivers to protect our children. We ask that pedestrian traffic is going to be very heavy within school zones and around schools. So please be cautious when entering these school zones. Take your time, slow down. Watch for these kids walking in between vehicles and walking towards the schools. If you see kids near a crosswalk or any kind of pedestrian, please stop for them when in a school zone. And if they are in there, do not block the crosswalk. This would make the kids have to step outside the crosswalk and possibly inside of traffic travel. For our bike riders, they're going to be rushing, trying to get to school, especially these kids trying to make their bells. Testing becomes important to them. Please be cautious for our bicycle riders. Make sure we are vigilant when we are the driver of a vehicle. Look both ways. Realize that bicycles may come out of driveways, side streets, or up behind you. So please look both ways when making left or right turns. With these little bit of effort in helping make our traffic school safeties in the area around the school safe, it should make a great school year for everybody. At this point, we're going to have Major Johnson to provide an update on some of our street racing operations that's been conducted throughout the city.
Thank you, Detective. Again, my name is Dave Johnson. I'm the major over the Special Operations Bureau, and just want to provide just a brief update on some of our street racing activity and operations that we've seen in and around the area. So if you remember back in January, at this very podium, we told everybody about a disturbing trend that we saw here in Charlotte around aggressive driving, around street racing, around street takeovers and highway takeovers that we knew that we had to address immediately to preserve the safety and well-being of everybody in the city. I told everybody then that if you chose to engage in this type of activity, that you subjected yourself to possibly being charged, to having your vehicle seized permanently, and that was all in January of this year. Following that warning to everybody, we conducted several weeks of surveillance and information gathering, where we were eventually in May able to conduct a large-scale vehicle roundup. We seized over 50 vehicles in a single day. We charged at least as many folks in that same day. Total numbers from that operation are 80 individuals that were identified as participating in street racing. Same number of vehicles also obviously identified. We still have some of those folks that are outstanding. We're still looking for those folks actively. There are about 10 individuals that we're still looking for that have yet to be charged, and there are about 15 vehicles out there that are still, some of them still on the street, some of them have been crashed, some of them have been sold, which is fine. That accomplishes our goal of getting them off the street. But we just want to let everybody know, A, we're still working this problem and still very much aware of it. B, following that roundup, we saw a very sharp drop in complaints and our own visual observation of street racing activity, so we know that it was a success. And C, we want to let folks know that the book is not closed on this whatsoever. So we're still equipped and willing and able to charge folks for this when we see it happening. So if anybody thought that we were taking our foot off the gas pedal, so to speak, that's certainly not the case. So just want to provide that update to everybody. And I believe now we'll open it up for questions. If anybody has questions on any of these three topics, we'll be glad to take them now.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. I was wondering if anyone was available to speak to the type of Title IX training that school resource officers undergo in case there is any kind of assault or harassment that a student might want to report to a school resource officer.
Yeah, we'll have Lieutenant Flatt come up and address that.
So obviously, school resource officers are, they're going to handle any criminal complaint that comes in at the school. But we also work very closely with CMS and CMS law enforcement. So they're all involved in the process. The school resource officers go through a 1-week state certification course prior to becoming an SRO. And we also do some additional training here with them at CMPD. But yes, they would handle any criminal complaint and then work with CMS law enforcement and CMS schools to handle anything like that.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ashley.
Good morning. My question in regard to SROs returning back into schools, we've heard from school districts themselves that after the pandemic and having kids back in the classroom, many for the first time in a very long time, they're taking precautions in terms of like a psychology, people having more psychologists on hand. Are the SROs prepared for any like additional stressed children, or have you guys had conversations about that? Is there any additional maybe classes they've taken over the summer SROs to kind of better prepare for students who might be under all of that pressure and this kind of anxiety of returning during what we're still experiencing as a pandemic?